A Midsummer Night's Dream. The nights are dead. Their swords are rust, except a few who had to hastily all the time to rise the dust. Dear reader, it was summertime. The sun glared down upon the city with pitiless ferocity. It is difficult for the sun to be ferocious and exhibit compunctions simultaneously. The heat was, oh, bother! Thermometers. Who cared for standard measures, anyhow? It was so hot that the rock gardens put on so many extra waiters that you could hope to get your gain fees now, as soon as the other people got theirs. The hospitals were hurting in extra cost for bystanders. For when little woolly dogs loll their tongues out or say woof woof at the feast that bite 'em, and nervous old black bombazine ladies screeched "Mad dog!" and policemen began to shoot, somebody is going to get hurt. The man from Pom Tom J, who always wears an overcoat in July, had turned up in a Broadway hotel, drinking hot scotches and enjoying his annual ray from the kelp room. Philanthropists were petitioning the legislature to pass a bill requiring builders to make tenement fire escapes more commodious so that families might die altogether over the heat instead of one or two at a time. So many when we are telling you about the number of a bath they took each day that you wondered how they got along after the real lessee of the apartment came back to town and thanked him for taking such good care of it. The young man who called loudly for cold beef and beer in the restaurant, protecting that roast palate and burgundy was really too heavy for such weather, blushed when he met your eye, for you had heard him all winter calling in modester tones for the same ascetic wants, soup, pocketbooks, shirtwaists, actors, and baseball. Excuse grow thinner. Yes, it was summertime. A man stood at 34th Street waiting for a downtown car. A man of 40, grey-haired, pink-faced, keen, nervous, plainly dressed with a harassed took around the eye. He wiped his forehead and laughed loudly when a fat man with an out-in look stopped and spoke with him. "No, sir," he shouted with defiance at scorn. "None of your old mosquito-haunted swamps and skyscraper mountains without elevators for me. When I want to get away from hot weather, I know how to do it. New York, sir, is the finest summer resort in the country. Keep in the shade and watch your diet. And don't get too far away from an electric fan. Talk about your Adirondacks and your Catskills. There's more solid comfort in the borough of Manhattan than in all the rest of the country together. So, sir, no tramping up perpendicular skiffs and being woken up at 4 in the morning by a million flies and eating canal goods strains from the city for me. Little wild New York will take a few select summer boarders, comfort and convenience of homes. That's, he added, that I answer every time. You need a vacation, said the fat man, looking closely at the other. You haven't been away from town in years. Better, come with me for 2 weeks. Anyhow, the throat in the Bickerkill are jumping at anything now that looks like a fly. Harding writes me that he landed a 3 pounds brown last week. Nonsense, cried the other man. Go ahead if you like and boggle around in rubber boots, wearing yourself out trying to catch fish. When I want one, I go to a cool restaurant and order it. I laugh at you fellows whenever I think of you hasting around in the heat in the country thinking you are having a good time. For me, Father Knickerbocker's little improved farm with a big shady lane running through the middle of it. The fat man signed over his friend and went his way. The man who thought New York was the greatest summer record in the country boarded a car and went buzzing down to his office. On the way, he threw away his newspaper and looked up at a ragged patch of sky above the housetops. 3 pounds, he muttered absently, and Harding isn't a liar. I believe if I could, but it's impossible. They've got to have another month at least. In his office, the upholder or urban midsummer joys divided head foremost into the swimming pool of business. Atkins, his clerk, came and added a spray of letters, memoranda, and telegrams. At 5 o'clock in the morning, the busy man leaned back in his office chair, but his feet on the deck, and mused aloud. I wonder what kind of bait Harding used. She was all in white that today, and there Compton lost a bet to Guinness. Compton had wagered she would wear light blue, for she knew that was his favorite color. Compton was a millionaire's son that almost laid him open to the chance of betting on a sure things. But white was her choice, and James held up his head with 25's lordly air. The little summer hotel in the mountains had a lively crowd that year. There were 2 or 3 young college men and a couple of artists and a young naval officer on the side. On the other, there were enough beauties among the young ladies for the correspondents of a society paper to refer to them as a bevy. But the moon among the stars was Mary Savile. Each one of the young men greatly desired to arrange matters so that he could pay her millinery bills and fix the furnace, and have her to away with the Savile's part of her name forever. Those who could stay only a week or two went away, hinting at pistols and blinded hearts. But Compton stayed like the mountains themselves, for he could afford it. And Gaines stayed because he was a fighter and wasn't afraid of millionaires' sons, and, well, he adored the country. What do you think, Miss Mary? He said once. I knew a duffer in New York who claimed to like it in the summertime. Said you could keep cooler than you could in the woods. Wasn't he an awful silly? I don't think I could breathe on Broadway after the 1st of June. Mamma was thinking of going back week after next, said Miss Mary with a lovely frown. But when you think of it, said Jane. "They are lots of jolly places in town in this summer. The roof gardens, you know, and the roof gardens." Deepest blue was the lake that day, the day when they had the mock tournament and the men rode clumsy farm horses around in a glade in the woods and caught curtains or rings of the end of the lens. Such fun! Cool. And right as the finest wine came the breeze of the shadow's forest. The water below was a vision seen through an aural haze. A white mist from hidden falls blurred the green of a hand's breadth of tree tops half way down the road. Youth made merry hand in hand with young summer. Nothing on Broadway like that. The villagers gathered to see the city folk for their mad drollery. The roads ran with the laughter of the pixies and naiads and sprites. James caught most of the runs. His was the privilege to crown the queen of the tournament. He was a conquering knight, as their right went. On his arm he wore a white scarf. Compton more light blue. She had declared the performance for blue, but she wore white that day. James looked about for the queen to crown her. He heard her merry laugh as if from the clouds. She had spiraled away and climbed Chimney Rock, a wide granite bluff, and stood there, a white cherry among the logs 50 feet above their heads. Instantly he had Compton accepted the implied challenge. The bluff was easily mounted the rear, but the front offered small holes on hand or roof. Each man quickly selected his road and began to climb. A crevice abrupt, a slight projection, a vine or three branch, of all these were aids that counted in the race. It was all foolery. There was no stake, but there was chance in it. Cross-reader, and like her health, and something else that Miss Clay writes so charmingly about. Jane gave a great tug at the roof or a laurel and pulled himself to Miss Mary's feet. On his arm he carried the wreath of rose, and while the villagers and summer boarders screamed and applauded below, he placed it on the queen's brow. "You are a gallant knight," said Miss Mary. "If I could be your true king's away," began James. But Mrs. Mary laughed him down. For come on, scrambled over the edge of the rock 1 minute behind time. What a twilight that was when they drove back to the hotel. The aural of the valley turned slowly to purple. The dark woods framed the lake as a mirror. The tonic air stirred the very soul in one. The first pale stars came out over the mountain tops where yet a faint glow of. "I beg your pardon, Mr. James," said Atkins. The man who believed New York to be the fine summer resorts in the world opened his eyes and kicked over the mucilage bottle on his desk. "I believe I was asleep," he said. "It's the heat," said Atkins. "It's something awful in the city this." "Nonsense," said the other. "The city beats the country 10-1 in summer. Fools go out trampling in the muddy brooks and wear themselves out trying to catch little fish as long as you finger. Stay in town and keep comfortable. That's my idea." "Some letters just came," said Atkins. "I thought you might like to glance at them before you go. Let us look over his shoulders and read just a few lines of one of them. My dear husband, just received your letter ordering us to stay another month. Rita's coat is also gone. Jessie has simply gone wild like a little Indian. Will be the making of both children work so hard, and I know that your business can hardly afford to keep us here so long. Best man that ever, you always pretend that you like the city in summer. So to finish in that you used to be a fond of, and all to keep, as well and happy. Come to you if it were not doing the babies so much good. I stood last evening on Chimney's Rock in exactly the same spot where I was when you put the wreath of roses on my head. Through all the world, when you said you would be my true knight. 15 years ago, dear, just think, have always been that to me, ever and ever. Mary. The man who said he thought New York the finest summer resort in the country dropped into a cafe on his way home and had a glass of beer under an electric fan. Wonder, that kind of a fly of Harding used, he said to himself.